Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. And I overall really enjoyed this movie and think that it was pretty good, barring some kind of pacing and kind of world-building issues. Mainly in regards to the quantum realm when we're kind of like going through it. Like, they do the bare bones kind of minimum and instead kind of focus more on giving us our introduction into Kang. He is like the biggest kind of draw in this movie, and I think they did a really good job with him because they gave a nice solid base for us to understand him as the next big antagonist for the MCU. And I think that really works very well because this is our introduction into Phase 5, and I think this was a very nice introduction and also kind of interesting and nice to have Ant-Man be the one that kind of ushers that in, since he was also kind of important with figuring out what to do and do the time heist with Endgame. And that's really kind of weird because normally Kang is not as associated with Ant-Man as you would be led to believe, and instead more associated with Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom. But that was the big kind of draw. The other kind of big thing is setting up and showcasing Scott's relationship with Cassie, and I kind of wanted a little bit more with that. So my negatives are not that this movie sucked or had any really bad spots. I think that they showcased a lot of good kind of growth for what's been going on with this movie, and I felt a lot better with Phase 5 for this. Now granted, that's this. I take it as it kind of comes and be like, alright, we'll have to see what kind of goes on here. This already feels like it has more of a forward and tighter kind of focus than what we got in Phase 4. So we'll see how that kind of trends out and how that kind of works out for this. And we also pretty much, this isn't just complete and utter setup for Kang and also for Cassie's turn as like the next kind of generation for Ant-Man. We do pretty much get a full story in here that does have its kind of conclusion while leaving things open for what will be coming forward. It's usually the same kind of thing that happens in a comic book run or whatnot. You have pretty much the closeout of the main kind of plot of what's been going on, and then you've got the threads that could be left for other kind of creators or whatnot to pick up and do with as they will. So, this movie starts out, and we pretty much see how Scott's been doing after Endgame. We see that he's doing pretty good in life. People are recognizing him, saying hi to him on the street. He goes to a coffee shop, and they call him Spider-Man instead of Ant-Man, and he doesn't really correct them. He just kind of goes with the flow. We see him doing stuff with his books, and his book that he has written and reading to people, and a really kind of cool conflict that we get in here is between what helping and what utilizing your power actually kind of means. Because Cassie is looking at this and seeing that he's pretty much just fucking around. Now granted, Scott has had a kind of crazy and completely tumultuous life, and he's kind of at a good spot, and he's kind of like figuring out that kind of groove. And the thing is, yes, there are other ways that keep him helping people as Ant-Man, but I do think that one of the important ways that we see him helping people as Ant-Man without having to be completely active in it is his book. And you see kids with Ant-Man backpacks, you see kids coming to his book signings and readings wearing Ant-Man costumes and everything. He's having a positive influence, and he's not coming off as a narcissistic celebrity asshole. I'm glad that they didn't go that route. He's still trying to be involved in Cassie's life. He's still trying to be a good father, trying to figure out how to navigate kind of the crazy situations he gets into. And we also see that Hope has gotten her father's company back, that she's doing amazing kind of stuff, utilizing Pym particles to really help the world. And I'm like, yeah, look at what Hope is doing. She's doing a lot of good stuff. But, of course, they get a call, and he's got to go get Cassie out of jail. It's like, what the hell is going on here? And she evidently pretty much tried to stop the police from clearing out a homeless camp. And the thing is, she also utilized the Pym particles and gave back their like little miniature car. And I like that they kind of have this conversation in the car, and she of course is trying to utilize these kind of things to help people, and Scott's like, you have to be careful with this. What if the police had gotten it? What if it didn't go exactly as planned? And I like that I can kind of straddle this kind of middle ground. I understand and applaud Cassie for trying to help people and trying to help those that are being hurt unjustly. But Scott has screwed around with these Pym particles, and the thing is, he is not. He has a kind of streak of irresponsibility. However, he takes the Pym particles and those kind of things very seriously, and yet he still fucks up, and he's still afraid that some kind of weird fucking thing is going to happen and like kill someone. So it's cool to be able to be like understand and see both sides and be like, okay, there's got to be some kind of way to kind of help out, and that is a nice kind of conflict that we see that keeps going on throughout the movie. We see that like Hope also talks about her having her own suit and all that kind of stuff. It's like, what the? All right, cool. So they pretty much get to Hank and Janet's, and of course utilizing the kind of small pizza that they can make large and everything like that. And that we start learning that evidently Cassie has been working with Hank and doing stuff with the quantum realm and everything. And he's like, Scott's like, anybody gonna tell me this kind of stuff? And that Janet is being very close-lipped about her time in the quantum realm. She hasn't talked to Hope about it or anybody else about it, which does lead to vast repercussions. And the thing is, I could see some people being like, plot demands is that she doesn't really do this. But when we kind of explore and see what's going on, because the movie also started out with pretty much a kind of cold open kind of stinger where we see Janet in the quantum realm, and then we see a ship crash, and we see that she's trying to like take on these alien kind of, well, this quantum realm kind of things, and then this dude helps her, who's Kang. If you have not watched the Loki show, he's still pretty much the same character. Well, not the same character of He Who Remains. And it's like, okay, we'll have to see how this works out. So Cassie decides to show what they've been able to do, and has essentially created a satellite kind of imaging system, like a Hubble Space Telescope for the quantum realm. And I do like how they're able to explain this kind of stuff. And her character motivation for this was she did this because if she had this ability, she could pinpoint stuff within the quantum realm. They could have like found Scott, and it's a very strong character motivation. It doesn't come off really stupid. She really was affected by the blip, and I do like that the blip is still being brought up, and we are having repercussions because of that is linked to the homeless camp and everything. People coming back, people losing their houses, their jobs, coming back and be like, hey, screw you, motherfucker. Who cares that a purple fucking space alien snapped your ass out of existence? Fuck off! It's like, no. Whenever there's a written thing of an insurance of like an act of God or something like that, a purple spaceman with reality bending stones fucking dusting your ass is like if you can't give somebody a mulligan on that shit, you're a fucking dick. However, I do like that that's being brought up. So they're doing the imaging system, and it's really kind of cool. And it doesn't come off that she's like overpowered, super smart tech genius. I mean, she's working with one of the smartest minds within the MCU and doing this stuff and bringing this stuff up herself. And it works out. It balances out. She doesn't come off as like, I'm crazy overpowered, motherfucker, and I know what the fuck to do. Because we go through this movie, and she even starts questioning it and kind of understanding Scott's kind of way of view, but Scott also kind of understands her. And the thing is, Janet's like, that sends a signal down there. Turn that shit off. Turn that shit off. Turn that motherfucking shit off. And then she like yanks the cord essentially, but of course we see that something gets sent back through and sucks them all into the quantum realm, as well as like these super smart ants. That comes into play later, because Hank had pretty much made a super smart ant farm society, and that comes into play, which I appreciate because this movie is Ant-Man, and I like that they bring that shit in. So our people are separated. We have Scott and Cassie, we've got Hope, Janet, and Hank on the other, and this is where it kind of goes a little bit nutty, in that we kind of spin wheels a little bit until we get to pretty much Kang's part. We see Scott having to deal with kind of like the monstrous kind of organisms within the quantum realm and trying to protect Cassie. And by the way, I like how their suits are essentially now kind of like Star Trek kind of shit, where they just like tap something on their chest and kind of spreads the fuck out. I love that shit, and that's awesome. Because you mainly see that with Scott and with Janet. Not Janet, Hope. So we see them trying to figure out what's going on. Hank is like, wow, we don't need suits and shit down here, and it's really different than the time that they rescued Janet. And then Janet's like, watch out, because we see someone pretty much scanning through. Scott and Cassie have to deal with those kind of monsters and then get brought in by this group, and this group is not really well fleshed out. There's enough there, I mean, for pretty much comic fan service kind of stuff, but I kind of wanted a little bit more built out. They did the bulk for Kang, and honestly, if I'm going with the setting up of the true kind of big bad and also Kang, I would also make the same kind of judgment of putting it more on Kang and setting him up and really getting him situated, which unfortunately leaves these guys as they're kind of like grabbed pretty much. They grab Lang and Cassie, and we see that like Cassie's telling them to drink the ooze, and then the ooze pretty much allows them to understand what's going on, which I kind of like those things. You either go tech way or you go organic way in a kind of universal kind of translator. And we also see that Janet kind of uses her kind of limited kind of scope of what she's done within the quantum realm. Well, not limited kind of scope, at least for us. She uses her vast knowledge of the quantum realm to kind of pretty much talk to this one dude, get a ride, they get to a city to kind of see what's going on. We see kind of Kang's forces around, and we get introduced to Lord Krylar, who is Bill Murray, and that evidently she could either be considered a terrorist or a freedom fighter. And he, of course, was going to take them to Kang. They also get their own kind of ooze kind of thing to understand everything. Hank's just having a good time. Like, Michael Douglas just fucking, like, rolls with this. And he's like, he doesn't get out of character, but you can tell he's having fucking fun with this shit. And Janet really does a good job as well of showcasing that, like, I'm glad that I was out of here and I didn't want to fucking talk about this shit. And, of course, they kind of take Lord Krylar's vehicle and fuck him over where, like, Hope pretty much enlarges this giant kind of thing, which then fucking pretty much eats him when he did this kind of drink that he pretty much ate the little thing. And they kind of go off, and then we kind of get our information kind of dump of what's kind of going on with Kang from two kind of sources. We learn from the kind of village people that took Scott and Cassie about Kang the Conqueror. His name isn't dropped until we get to Janet's kind of info dump, and how they've been pushed out. He took over their places. Their buildings are actually sentient kind of vehicle kind of constructs, I believe. They got a telepath as well, that was done with some kind of nice kind of bits as well, just kind of humor and everything. The jokes work for the most part for me in this movie. I understand that this being built more as a kind of comedy, people would be like, I'm not really into that. That makes sense. Though they do handle Kang very seriously. He is not the butt of jokes here. He is being set up as a badass, and even though we go through the story and we see things kind of happen, that kind of threat level at least was communicated well enough for me, and that the jokes never really got past that. And, like, destroyed that. So, they kind of learn, we see this kind of, like, what's her name? I want to call her Lady with a Stick because they didn't really do much with, like, doing her name enough for me to, like, get to her name. Gentora and this Absalom dude, and they're trying to figure out how to, like, they're getting the whole kind of situation. Kang is a bad guy, Cassie wants to help out, Scott wants to find the rest of their family and figure kind of out from there. And that's where they two kind of butt heads kind of with the, like, helping people, because here's the thing, you're just getting this one side here. Now granted, Kang is a dill hole here, alright? You want to help these people. However, you need more information rather than just jumping into something. You got to figure out what's kind of going on, if there are any kind of time constraints, how you need to prepare, what's kind of going on with that. Where Scott's kind of like, we don't even know what's really going on here, and we need to, like, our first priority should be to get our people, figure out what's going on, and then kind of deal with this. And I don't think it's like overwrought. She's not being completely bratty about it. He's not being a complete dick about it. It's kind of like a really good even-handed approach, because then we see that Kang has been sending out kind of feelers and everything, and has sent out MODOK to kind of get Scott and Cassie. And let's see here. I can actually... Okay, we pretty much see this giant kind of thing. We see fight sequence pretty much as Kang's forces are trying to get Scott and Cassie. She's utilizing her suit, and the thing is, she's not doing it well yet. And that's another great thing, because Scott then tries to show her how to utilize the strength kind of capabilities of the suit and how to fight with it. And she's like, I didn't see it, you were that tiny. But we see her kind of building and growing throughout the movie, not on a giant exponential kind of scale where she's like completely and utterly uber powerful and understands everything about it. But we see her kind of learning and being able to do things and be like, oh, okay, we are seeing her being taught and being put in situations where she has to learn and utilize skills in order to effectively survive in this realm. And I like that. That's what you want to do. Show and tell. Well, the thing is, MODOK pops up and has pretty much all these devices and everything, and we learned that it is Darren from the first movie, and this is one of the most effective fucking jokes here. MODOK is a character, is a complete kind of joke kind of thing. Now, granted, there's some ways that you can take it, and MODOK is a very credible threat. However, he is also he's still a threat here with his advanced technology and everything, but we see his giant head, and we see that he had been shrunk down into the helmet like we'd seen, and it shows why he's just a giant head with tiny arms and shit. And Kang is utilizing him as an enforcer and doesn't really give a shit about him. And he doesn't want to be called Darren, he wants to be called MODOK, and pretty much takes them to Kang. And it's nuts. It's crazy as shit, but they do it so well, and the actor, they brought the actor back to play Darren, and as MODOK, it just works. Like, he's having fucking fun with it. So, they are in the fortress, and let us get down to Janet giving us the lowdown of her interactions with Kang. So, we see that he has this advanced ship that he was evidently exiled. And we learn later on in the movie who exiled him, because this is like outside of space and time, so where he can't really affect anything. But his power source was fucked up, so Janet actually was trying to help him out because he said that he could do it, and that this was a multiversal kind of energy kind of core. And they went through and did all this kind of stuff, and you're thinking, okay, if Kang knows all this stuff about the multiverse and all this kind of technology, why wouldn't he just be able to create this? Now, granted, he might have stolen this technology or acquired this technology in ways that wouldn't allow him to understand completely how to do this, because that has been a kind of staple in the comics as well. He might not know exactly how to do stuff with the energy or whatnot, and I could see why people would be like, okay, why didn't he kind of like do this himself? It might be because since it's outside of space and time, it might not be connected to the same kind of multiversal energy sources that he would probably need. We don't know, but we see him and Janet fix it and be able to do these kind of things. However, we learned that his kind of spaceship chair thing is neurokinetic, and Janet is connected to it and sees all of the timelines that he has erased. He has fought the Avengers multiple times and killed them, and he is a conqueror. And the thing is, Janet is horrified at what she's pretty much almost done, and he's like, listen, I'll take you home. I'll take you home to your daughter, and I'll leave you alone. And it's like, yeah, but that's just hoping on the benevolence of a god that I have already seen has like wiped out like timelines, trillions, and she can't go through with it and decides to take his energy source and utilize PIM particles to kind of expand it and explode it and kind of put it into a position where he can't utilize it, and he's pissed off about it. But he did get his armor, and damn, they did a good job with Kang's armor here, because it doesn't really look armor-ish in the comics, but I love the ability that they were able to do with it here. And of course, she then got out, and she kind of felt bad and about everything, about helping him, and he's conquered pretty much the quantum realm and pretty much setting up to get out. He wants to revenge himself upon those that have exiled him. And we also learned that he has seen something that is coming. This kind of end. He's like, if you can figure out how to utilize time, when you go to the end and see how it ends. And that evidently he's trying to stop something worse, because we see Kang talking about that and explaining that later on. And it's like, what the fuck's worse? And he's fighting other Kangs. It's like, yeah, Kang does that stuff. So we'll kind of have to see what kind of goes on with that. But he is explaining, and I just love seeing his motivations, and the actor, he's fucking phenomenal. I love Jonathan Majors, how he is able to do Kang and present him. And I've seen that he would want to, like, pretty much have stuff against, like, Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark. I'm like, yeah, because what we've seen here is like, shit, this is similar kind of stuff to what Tony is bringing, but also from a different kind of angle, and would be interesting to see how their philosophies differ and how they fight. Because they're text-based. Tech-based. Because Kang is a human, and he's been able to take on the Avengers. That's a big thing with his tech and all the stuff that he's been able to acquire throughout all the different kind of multiversal and time travels that he's got. So it's like, he is a very credible threat. And we definitely really see the balancing of that towards the climax. So he pretty much goes to Scott. He's like, okay, he needs some Pym particles. He's like, all right, I want you to help me. Are you the one with the hammer? He's like, no, I'm Ant-Man, pretty much. It's like, I don't think I've really fought or killed one of you before. But he pretty much goes, I need something from you. You're going to help me, or I'm going to kill your daughter in front of you. And then we see him pretty much using telekinesis to a degree from, like, his armor, and it's just like, holy shit, he's pretty much getting ready to kill Cassie. But Scott decides, all right, I'll do this, I'll help you, and takes Scott to the source. And we see pretty much the rest of the Pym family popping up at the same time, because Janet wants to stop Kang from getting that. So Scott pretty much goes in. We learned that like, MODOK's kind of helping him through as his handler, which he's a fucking dick about it. But we see that Scott pretty much gets into a probability storm where everything kind of is happening at once, and we see all these different versions of Scott, and he's just freaking the fuck out. But Janet kind of helps out as well. He's trying to utilize the Pym particles to shrink down the device, but it's not working. But of course, Hope pops in, helps him out. They're able to shrink it down, and the thing is, he wants to give it to Kang because of Cassie. However, they're trying to tell him not to do it. He pretty much shoots down Hank and the ship, blasts and takes out Scott and Hope, and pretty much takes Janet with him. And that's where he kind of gives the lowdown of what's been going on and what he's trying to stop. That this asshole is saying that, like, I'm the best shot, you got to stop what's coming. And it's like, shit. Now, granted, I understand how people could probably be fatigued with this, because you've got these villains be like, I'm the only one who knows what's kind of going on, and there's a giant kind of threat coming. Comics go through these cycles, stories go through these cycles, and it's enough of a kind of different thing for me, but enough of the kind of familiar that I know from the comics to be like, yeah, this is kind of cool. And it's like, alright, we'll see kind of how this is going on, since he's like, I'm your best shot? What the fuck? Let's see here. So they pretty much get up, they're like, what are we doing? Because normally, you'd want other people to kind of help you to take on Kang the Conqueror. And we find out that Hank pretty much gets helped by these ants, and the super ants went through a time dilation and got to, like, a civilization level 2. They're, like, amped up, and they got tech and shit. It's like, alright, let's do this. So they pretty much go to try and attack Kang, and to stop him, he's powering up and trying to take all of his forces to the upper realms. And we see that Cassie is still in the building, but she is able to escape, and let's see here, breaks out Gentora, and the rest of the kind of resistance forces come to fight as well. We see Cassie getting through this battle and learning stuff, fighting MODOK, and mainly running away, but then figuring out how to fight him and get him down. She gets to her big kind of form, tells him to stop being a dick. And he's like, it's too late, I'm already a dick. Well, you can just stop that anytime. And it's cool because we get a nice kind of character moment later on. So they're fighting everywhere. We're seeing Scott trying to get through and stop the machine and everything. Janet's pretty much biding her time with what's kind of going on. It's funny because Kang isn't really taking Scott that much of a threat, and that pretty much is his undoing in this film. Because everybody would be like, who the fuck is, like, especially with Scott Lang as Ant-Man. Like, if it was Hank Pym, you'd probably take more kind of precautions, but he severely underestimates Scott. And they pretty much are able to kind of like get the rest of the forces to kind of fight what's going on, but then Kang decides to get on the field because the power source gets kind of like knocked out. It's like, fuck this shit. And we just see him start laying waste to everything. But of course, that's when the ants pop up and completely roll his ass. I mean, he's able to kind of shield himself for a while, but then MODOK comes in and kind of helps out, and he pretty much dies and says, at least I died as an Avenger. It's like, sure, yeah, I'll at least give you that. You know, like, go for it. And it was a funny kind of death scene, at least for me. I could see how it'd be overdone for others, but Kang gets rolled by the ants because people really don't understand what an ant is down here, and Kang's like, shit, I got like, because they overload, like, get through his shields and they just pick his armor apart. So you don't have the tech and anything. He's still smart. He still knows how to do things. It's just he doesn't have the tech to implement the certain kind of things he's got now. And it's like, yeah, okay. So, let's see here. We do have some losses on the Rebel forces. The Absalom kind of dude, but they didn't spend enough time for that, so it doesn't really hit that much. And it kind of sucks, because you could have really built more of that kind of relationship and to have it kind of better worked out. But I don't know any kind of place that they could like cut to give us that. Like, I would have to do a lot of kind of thinking and restructuring to kind of get that to work out. So Janet's able to take the power source and open up a rift that similarly brought them down, because MODOK was able to see the signal and brought him down for Kang. So she kind of like reverses it and is able to get her, Hank, Cassie, and Janet through, but then Kang's trying to get through by himself, and Scott just starts fighting him. And the thing is, Kang really showcases how much of a physical kind of threat he is. He just is like tearing Scott apart, which makes me sad that we haven't we lost Steve Rogers, because I really want to see how those two would go mano a mano. Also, T'Challa. Oh, those, like, he's showcasing moves, and I'm like, he is physically, he knows what the fuck he's doing, and Scott is just trying to keep him to stop from going through, and he's like, I don't know how you thought you'd win. He's like, I'm just making sure we both kind of lose. And then, of course, we see that Janet comes in, helps him out, blasts him and the kind of power source, and Kang gets sucked into it, and we learn later on that he's died. He's dead. And then we just see that Hope and Scott are just hugging and are like, sorry about this. And then you're like, oh, they stuck in the quantum realm? But no. The funny thing is, they pretty much seeded what they kind of needed, as Cassie had the satellite and is able to open it back up with the pinpointing of what she's got. Like, it doesn't come out of nowhere that they just magically get like a portal or whatnot to bring them back. So we get them back, and it's like, all right, cool. Everything's kind of worked out. The forces have won with the resistance. Kang is no longer a threat, and it seems like a good happy ending at this point. However, we see that Scott's kind of going through. We see that the coffee shop gets him right, and instead has charges him for it, which he has no problem with. We also saw Scott hanging out with Jimmy Woo, which was kind of a nice little thing. It was a nice little cameo in the beginning. But we see him kind of think, he's like, Kang said that, like, he was preparing for something. What if I've screwed the universe? It's like, no. I do like that it kind of takes that darker edge. He gets like a birthday cake from Baskin Robbins to take to Cassie, and he's just making up for all the birthdays that he missed. He's like, nah, we should kind of be all right. And he's like, oh god, this cake. And then we get to the mid-credits scene. And this is where we start seeing it's like we get confirmation that Kang the Conqueror was killed because we see all these other variants. We see essentially the Council of Kang, or like the Conqueror's Conclave, as we see like Ramatut, I think a Mortis, and some other kind of ones. But they're like, yeah. We see them kind of talking with each other, and the thing is, Jonathan Majors does a great job of differentiating each one while still having similarities enough of being like, okay, and it doesn't feel off. We see that this is a group that have some kind of objective, and when it's talking about like a Kang dynasty, you have to fight all of these Kangs, and we see all of them and all their differences and everything as they're calling them all together, and they're like, you're probably disappointed because you weren't the one that killed this Kang. It's like, yeah, but the thing is, they are now have the Avengers and Ant-Man on their radar because they are able to kill one of these Kangs, and they are mucking about with the multiverse with like Doctor Strange and everything that we've been seeing. So it's like, oh yeah, this is definitely setting up a lot of different kind of, well, not a lot of different kinds of things, but our big kind of bad, what can be going on going forward. Is like, all right, cool. That was a good mid-credit scene. And then the end credit scene we get is pretty much a preview of Loki Season 2, as we see Loki and Mobius in like the 1910, 1920s, as we see this, let's see, Victor Timely, who seems to be another variant of Kang, talking about time and his kind of experiments with it. So it's like, and Loki's like afraid of him. Like, he knows what he can do. And it's like, shit, we'll have to see how this kind of works out and what kind of happens. And it's like, ooh, okay, that was a nice kind of stinger for the show. And I'm like, okay, I like that if it gets to this kind of point where we have things, and see, the thing is, it's connected enough to it that it doesn't feel completely like, oh, that's out of nowhere kind of shit. It doesn't feel like it was just like a trailer tacked on for like the next movie or whatnot. Which, by the way, was weird, in that when I saw this movie, there was only one trailer, and it was for The Flash. I found that kind of funny. But, no kind of problem with it. So, this was a kind of good one to showcase Scott as the kind of elder Ant-Man, and Cassie, how she's learned from him, and how she has made kind of mistakes, how she owns up to them, and tries to kind of like make it kind of better, because she does feel bad for being like, oh god, I brought this and accelerated this kind of stuff for Kang to be coming on. However, if they didn't do any of this, Kang could have come out of nowhere, because we've got the multiverse kind of more in play with He Who Remains, and the Council of Kangs out there doing whatever it is they do, and we don't even know how the end kind of works out, and what their kind of objectives are, and what even this Kang the Conqueror was trying to do. There's a lot that I liked with this movie. I really wish that the quantum realm parts of it were kind of better done. And not that they were horribly done. We are showcased weird, crazy kind of shit, which is good, because they did the same kind of stuff with Doctor Strange 2, of going fuck balls wild with the magic. It's like, alright, there's fucking weird shit in this quantum realm. It's really alien, Star Wars-y kind of feel of like, wow, this is kind of weird. I just wanted a little bit more with it. However, if it's between that getting shorted a little bit, where we could like expand upon it for a value add for like a show or something or whatnot, and just like crazy tales from the quantum realm, where we get more information on Kang. I like that the more information on Kang and the more setting up of what this threat is and what it means for the next phase and what we're going to be trying to kind of build to. So that is what I really liked and really enjoyed, and really got to hand it to him for this. And all the actors did very well. They did recast Cassie, and the actress did a really good job. I've seen her in Supernatural and Detective Pikachu and everything, and they give her good content here. She works off of the other actors very well and just meshes very well. She feels like Scott's daughter, and it doesn't feel crazy or shitty or anything. So I'm really interested to see her interacting with the other Young Avengers that we are getting and setting up, like Ms. Marvel, Hawkeye, Kate Bishop. We'll see kind of what works on Patriot, set up in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We'll kind of have to see how that kind of goes and works out. We'll see how their kind of team interacts and does with stuff, because we don't really have an Avengers team at this point yet. They kind of broke up from Endgame. We'll see how that kind of works out. We'll have like the main Avengers, the Young Avengers. We've got the Thunderbolts being put into play, who are kind of See, the thing is, it depends upon how it's going to work. I think it might be set up as villains trying to, like, not completely similar to the Suicide Squad, kind of some similarities, but, like, villains maybe attempting to try and reform and try and do better. And then, of course, you could have, like, a dark kind of Avengers. That, of course, was more with the Norman Osborn in the comics and everything like that, where you've got actual villains that are just brigading as heroes and doing horrible shit. So there's a lot of different kind of stuff at play, because we do know that the Thunderbolts will be a portion of what's going on forward, and I can't wait to see what kind of goes on. So I definitely would recommend this. If you're not that much into Ant-Man, definitely wait for it to be on Disney+. That's the thing. I'd say I enjoyed it, and I think it's important for people to understand the big bad of Kang, so I wouldn't say that it's completely missable. But if you're like, I don't really care for this character, definitely waiting, though. Granted, I like Scott Lang. I like learning about, like, Ant-Man and seeing all the kind of stuff and what they've done in this. So I'd recommend it, but if you want to wait because you don't want to deal with, like, theaters or whatnot, definitely wait on Disney+. And then if that's your time investment, and then if you aren't having fun with it, you just stop watching it. Yeah, it's interesting to see how my recommendations change because of where you can watch venue-wise. Also, because certain theaters are deciding to do kind of like concert theater seating pricing, where you might pay more if you want to be in the good seats. That's an AMC thing. That did not happen to me at the theater that I saw this. Okay? Not that did not happen with me. Just watch out for those kind of things. So if you want to be like, I'm going to wait for streaming, that's valid, and that's cool, and you do you. And if you don't want to watch us, that's cool. If you didn't like it, that's awesome. More power to you, and wait for the Marvel movies that you like, and yeah, and just wait for the Marvel movies that you like and you have fun with, because that's all it's really about. So those are my opinions on the movie. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.